Politics at this hour. President Trump made an unforgettable debut at the United Nations General Assembly.
He preached America first, and he also issued a major threat to North Korea. KCAL9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with this. Dave?
He wasn't mincing words, I can tell you that, and the president didn't pull any punches during his 40-minute address to the UN General Assembly, repeatedly blasting North Korea and Iran and threatening both of them in very different ways. And for better or worse, it certainly wasn't the routine UN "can't we all just get along" speech.
The scourge of our planet today is a small group of rogue regimes that violate every principle on which the United Nations is based.
In words rarely spoken at the United Nations, a threat to totally destroy another country, President Trump warned in the toughest possible terms what he could do to what he called this band of criminals, North Korea, armed with nuclear weapons and missiles, while injecting a derogatory nickname for the North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
These aren't the words I would have used.
Even the Republican chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, California Congressman Ed Royce from Brea, suggests there is a better way for President Trump to shut down the North Korean nuclear program.
Our biggest challenge right now is applying full diplomatic and financial pressure on North Korea by taking away the foreign currency that they need to run it. That's what we're trying to do. That is better than the other options.
Colorado Senator Cory Gardner, who agrees with the president's North Korea strategy, has now started a campaign to kick North Korea and its leader, Kim Jong-un, out of the United Nations.
We have to make it clear is if he wants to be a part of a global environment of leadership, then he needs to back away, drop the nuclear program, and then he can be welcomed once again.
California Governor Jerry Brown says inflammatory rhetoric like the president used is not going to help matters.
Just noise and threats. We're going to kill every man, woman, and child in North Korea. That doesn't advance the ball. It just raises the temperature and the exchange of non-rational bluster back and forth. I don't think that's positive.
The president also had harsh words for the Iran agreement to freeze Iran's nuclear program for the next decade in return for lifting international sanctions, an agreement that was signed off on by 5 other worldwide powers, including France.
The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me.
Mr. Trump is strongly hinting that the United States will drop out of the Iran agreement.
Aujourd'hui, le privilège de m'exprimer devant vous.
But the president of France, who also spoke to the UN, later told CNN that Trump's plan could have dire consequences for the U.S. and the world.
My position for Iran vis-à-vis President Trump was to say, look at the situation on North Korea. I don't want to replicate this situation with Iran.
But the president's remarks were cheered by the Israeli delegation, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump's speech the boldest one he's heard at the United Nations in 30 years. And Netanyahu followed up with his own tough talk to Iran.
As long as Iran's regime seeks the destruction of Israel, Iran will face no fiercer enemy than Israel.
And President Trump rhetorically waved the American flag at every opportunity, doubling down on his nationalistic America First theme, while suggesting that every member of the UN should put their nation first and foremost.
In America, we do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example for everyone to watch. As President of the United States, I will always put America first.
Now, former UN Ambassador John Bolton told Fox News this was the best speech of the Trump presidency, adding that in the entire history of the United Nations, there has never been a more straightforward criticism of the unacceptable behavior of other member states. Jeff, Lena, back.